Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Meet the Grantmakers online. My name is Angela Richardson. I am a senior trainer here at the Grantsmanship Center. And if this is your first time joining us for these panels, we want to welcome you and hope you'll come back many, many times. If you've been here before, welcome back. Today we have another amazing panel of some incredible panelists that I am very excited to introduce you to in just a moment. And we're looking forward to the questions that you all have for these panelists. So I'm going to start with the introductions. So first, I would like to introduce Angela Dawson. She is the director of the Ohio Commission of Minority Health in Columbus, Ohio. Hello, Miss Angie is how I know her, but welcome. And then next we have Darius Maynard. He is the program officer at the Community Foundation of Central Georgia, located in Macon. Welcome. Good afternoon, Darius.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you. And then we also have Liz Boylan. Liz is the grant officer at the Vilcek Foundation located in New York City. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm particularly excited about today's conversation, and I know a number of you are. And the way that I know that is because a lot of you sent in comments about how excited and relieved and grateful that you were for this conversation. So on behalf of our sponsors, Grant Station Foundant and the Grantsmanship Center, we want to thank you for being here. All of the panelists, the profiles for them are going to be in the Q&A. They're on our website, so you can see what their priorities are, what geographic focus they have, and that kind of information, what they fund, deadlines, and that type of thing. So you can find all of that through the profiles that you'll get in just a moment. So with no further ado, we are going to get started, and we'll start with introductions so we can get a sense of who the panelists are, what their priorities are, and what makes them unique. So Miss Angie, I would love to start with you.
Absolutely, and thank you to Grantsmanship Center for offering this very timely discussion, given that the season, if you will, that we are existing in. Do want to say to the audience, thank you so much for joining this opportunity of learning. Want to also encourage each of you. The work that you do every day is absolutely pivotal to your communities. Without a doubt, your work is making a difference. Want to talk with you specifically to encourage you, not just your organization, but to encourage you individually, because you come to this type of work for a reason. And your vision and passion exists across many seasons. And so we really want to make sure that you walk away with something that you can put in, not just your organizational toolkit, but something that will keep you motivated to do what I always refer to myself, what I was born to do. And so the Commission on Minority Health certainly want to bring you greetings from our board and staff. But the commission is unique because we were the first state agency in the nation set aside to really address disparities between minority and non-minority populations. And so back in 1987, we became that landmark agency. And as a result of our existence, we helped to propel the existence of 44 additional state offices of minority health, as well as to help put the foundation in place for the National Association of State Offices of Minority Health. So when it comes to the issue of health equity, we have been at this work with our shoulder to the wheel for some time. And so work that we do really focuses on providing funding for grant opportunities that address issues that are related to eliminating disparities in health. So we have a preventative focus. So our focus is on 6 primary diseases and conditions, and those are the drivers of 85% of excess deaths in racial and ethnic populations. And for those of you who have a health equity lens, this is no surprise. Cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, substance abuse, violence, and infant mortality. So those things are not surprising to you, but our work really centers around how do we fund entities to go upstream and prevent these issues from beginning. So when we think about those disparities, we use the terms inequity, inequities, and systemic inequities, sometimes interchangeably. But we want you to understand that if you look at the data within your states, you will see, for example, in Ohio, Blacks die from diabetes, a preventable disease, at over 70% higher age-adjusted death rate than whites. These are opportunities for us to improve health status as well as return on investment and the bottom line of the state. So the commission is unique in that we help to establish what many of you celebrate in April across this country, Minority Health Month. We built that on the premise of the work from Dr. Carter G. Woodson, created back in 1915, National Negro Health Week. And so in 1989, we established a statewide 30-day campaign really focusing on prevention and wellness within racial and ethnic communities. So you can't imagine our joy when in 2000 it became a nationally recognized celebration. More recently, we have expanded an infant mortality model, the Community Pathways Hub model, across 12 cities in our state, covering 30 counties, focusing on eliminating disparities in not just African American infant mortality, but in racial and ethnic populations. So those are some of the more recent things that we have done. But our focus is really assisting community-based agencies in being successful in obtaining grants. So we do quite a bit of capacity building and technical assistance to assist people who know what they need to do in their communities, but need assistance in accessing resources to be able to implement the programs that they're committed to do in their communities. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I learned as many trainings as I've done for the commission. I've just learned some things. So thank you so much. Darius, love for you to introduce your foundation.
All right. Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. I am Darius Maynard. I'm the program officer at the Community Foundation of Central Georgia, and we are based in Macon, Bibb County, which is about an hour south of Atlanta. I know everybody knows where Atlanta is. So we're in relation to them. We're an hour south of them, in the heart of Georgia. I've been here now for 8 years. The foundation has been in existence since 1993. And I actually consider the foundation my big sister because it's just 1 year older than I am. I'm 31. I am 31, so and born in 94. So it's good to be reunited with my sister. The work that we do started back in 1993. Really, I like to illustrate it as a match where there was a spark that struck and created a fire. There was a small group of citizens who wanted to meet a need in the communities that we serve, and they figured that a community foundation would be the best mode or engine to help fill those needs. And so they started the community foundation, and since then we have grown to over $100 million in assets.
Wow.
And continue to grant out that money back to the communities that we serve, which is 21 counties in the Central Georgia region. We are a geographic-based funding organization, which means, again, we cover those 21 counties in the Central Georgia region. And we just work every single day, as Ms. Angela said earlier in her introduction, to help support those nonprofits who are doing the heavy lifting in our communities. We're not the ones who are, boots on the ground, street level, doing that heavy lifting and those work with the actual neighbors of the communities, but we are making sure that we're showing up to support those organizations, and not just as a funder, but as a partner. Really want to emphasize that we are a partner in the work that you do, because our goal is to improve the quality of life for everyone in our Central Georgia region. And so I echo everything that has been said in Ms. Angela's introduction about everyone who took the time to come out today. We are here for you to answer any questions that you have, and are happy to do so. We just look forward to the conversation ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Liz.
Yes, of course. Angela, thank you. And thank you to the Grantsmanship Center. And really grateful to be on panel alongside Angela and Darius. I'm Liz Boylan, and I'm the grants officer with the Vilcek Foundation. We are a private operating foundation based in New York. And our mission is to raise awareness and celebrate immigrant contributions to the arts, sciences, culture, and society in the United States, and to foster appreciation for the arts and sciences more broadly. We're very excited this year to be celebrating our 25th anniversary. We were established in 2000 by Jan and Maritza Vilcek, and the foundation's mission is integrally tied to their experiences. Jan and Maritza immigrated to the United States from the former Czechoslovakia in 1965, both with the goal of being able to pursue their careers free from government censorship and intervention. Jan, as a biomedical scientist, was looking to be able to openly collaborate across institutions. And Maritza, as an art historian and curator, was really looking to be able to work with institutions where they could support young artists and where they'd have access to all arts materials without censorship. Immigrating enabled them both to achieve outstanding things in their careers. Jan, as an immunologist at NYU, and Maritza worked with the Brooklyn Museum's library and then the Metropolitan Museum of Art in their cataloging and acquisitions department for more than 30 years. And so with the resources they earned in their careers in 2000, they really wanted to establish an organization to give back, because they know that so much of what they achieved was because other organizations, institutions, and individuals had faith in the perspective that they brought as immigrants. A core focus of our work is really highlighting that there's no singular immigrant experience or narrative. We're in a time when we recognize that the media may share a certain perspective or a certain image, and the diversity of immigrant experiences is so widespread. And so the foundation accomplishes our mission across 3 core programs. The first is the foundation offers a prizes program annually, where prizes are given to immigrant scientists and to immigrant professionals in the arts in rotating categories in the arts and humanities. And just this past year, as we're celebrating our 25th anniversary, our foundation's president, Rick Kinsel, expanded our prizes program to double the prizes that we award in the arts each year. So this past cycle, we awarded prizes in biomedical science, as well as then in visual arts and in curatorial work. The second arm of our foundation's work is the foundation's art collection and exhibitions. Jan and Maritza, in their own life, developed a collection of art and really wanted to be able to make art accessible to the public. So the foundation, in our headquarters here in New York, we host exhibitions. Behind me, you can see we have one of the pieces from the collection, which is a Japanese-American artist, Tadashi Sato. And we also have an exhibition up of a South Korean-born artist, Il Lee, at this time. And for us, making exhibitions and making loans of these works is a way to make arts accessible, and particularly art by immigrant artists accessible to the greater public. And then the third, and really my core work with the foundation, is the foundation's grant making. So over the first 24 years or so of the foundation's work, a lot of our grants were identified either through our board or through partners or cold inquiries to the foundation. And over the last year, we've opened our first open call cycle for grant making. And again, that's really an initiative led by our president, Rick Kinsel, thinking about how we can democratize our grant making in this time and recognizing how much funding has been concentrated in coastal cities and in cities where we may have partners, but our focus is national. We recognize, going back to that core value, that there's no singular immigrant narrative or experience. Immigrants are part of the fabric of every state and all of the territories that are part of the United States. So with our most recent call for applications, we're seeking to support organizations that are either supporting immigrant artists, immigrant scientists, as well as organizations that are supporting arts initiatives across all media, with a focus on artwork that's engaging, artwork that is taking a different stance, taking risks, and really bringing innovation into communities. So we've just gone through our first cycle, and we're doing the review of all applications now, but looking to open our next call on September 1st. And really excited to talk about some of the things we've learned, how we're thinking about our work as funders, and really echoing what Angela said. One, thinking about how valuable the work that organizations that are seeking grants is. I know for myself, having been on the other side, that it's a work that comes from passion and from love. And I'm so grateful to be able to be in a position where I can support that work now, as well as to echo what Darius said, thinking about our organizations that we provide grants to as partners and how we can really work to uplift their initiatives and their work, because that's work that we cannot do ourselves, but that accomplishes our larger goals and our larger mission. So grateful to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Oh, I'm just so excited to jump in here. And just as a reminder, I know there's live questions that are starting to come in. So keep them coming, and we'll start with some questions from you all in just a moment. I want to thank in advance all of you who sent your questions in prior to the panel when you registered. As I reviewed them, I noticed that there was a common theme that was emerging. No fewer than 10 questions came in, all versions of some version of the same question. And so that question, I kind of merged it together. And it is, due to the current funding across federal agencies for nonprofits and around the country, for how is the philanthropic community addressing the need for increased funding opportunities? So I really see this first question, panelists, any way that you would like to discuss the current funding climate, how your funding agency is looking at it, any initiatives, any trends that you're seeing, any discussions that you're having kind of internally about your responsiveness, or even how you're thinking about your grant making currently. So Darius, I want to start with you, and then we'll go on to Liz, and love to hear what you all have to say about that.
Thank you for the question. This is something that everybody has their ear to the ground about. We are in a unique time. But one thing that we do know is that in the nonprofit sector, you really can't get comfortable off of grants.
It's true.
And that you have to have a diverse funding source for your organization. One of the things that we're doing at Community Foundation, we actually just had a summit of all the community foundations in the state of Georgia last week in Cobb County. And we had the Georgia Center for Nonprofits executive director come to present to us about just the laws that are changing, things that are coming down the pipeline, things to anticipate, and what they were doing as a hub for nonprofits in the state of Georgia to help prepare them for the transitions that are coming. And so here at our foundation, we've had a lot of nonprofits who are receiving federal funding and have received those notices about them being cut. Originally, we really didn't fund operating costs. But one of the things that we've started to slowly transition into is being able to open that up as a possibility for organizations that need it. We recognize that here at our foundation, we don't have the resources to fill the gaps that federal funding being cut are getting ready to create, but we can do what we can to kind of slow that bleed a little bit for those nonprofits, because at the end of the day, our communities are strong because of the nonprofits that we have in our communities. And if they continue to be cut the way that they are, that's just decreasing the amount of resources that we have in our community. So we're just trying to find unique ways that we can step in to help those nonprofits and fill those gaps for them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Liz.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I want to echo a little bit of what Darius said in his remarks. I think for us, we don't have an enormous grant making capacity, but thinking about where we do have capacity to support operating costs for organizations, we don't typically do rapid response granting. But I think overall, the largest lesson for us came out of COVID. I think during the initial days of the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw the industry in philanthropy really shift to thinking about how we could be more flexible, asking organizations what they needed, recognizing that if an organization had planned an event or an exhibition or a talk or a film festival, that maybe it wasn't going to happen the way it had initially been planned. And having open conversations with grant recipients and project partners about flexibility and how to be supportive in times when flexibility is needed. So for us, that means, sometimes speaking with organizations that we may have awarded grants that have lost NEA funding and saying, where is there room for us to be flexible in what grants we've awarded or what projects had been outlined as part of a grant agreement. I think, too, really looking to our collective power and wisdom, both in the philanthropic sector and in the nonprofit sector. I know I've been enormously grateful to organizations like the Grantsmanship Center, Grantmakers for Effective Organizations, Grant Professionals of America, Grantmakers in the Arts, and have seen a lot of knowledge sharing. And I think that that's really the way that we can move forward. And really sort of joining hands across from both funders to nonprofits that rely on grant funding to make it through these times, to be aware of how legal changes, how changes in laws that may impact nonprofits, how executive orders may impact our work, as well as how we can be strong and remain committed in our mission and in our work, and in our commitments to our mission and values and to the communities that we support through our work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There's so much. I want to comment on everything. Each time you guys share, I want to say something, but I want to let Miss Angie share, and then we'll keep going.
Okay, so to my co-panelists, thank you for being able to stand in the gap. That mission-driven decision is so key. And while we are a state funding agency, we do recognize that our programs that provide services, for example, to high-risk pregnant women, to prevent infant mortality and maternal mortality, are impacted because those resources impact the women and the families, if you will, that they serve. If we are serving the prevention of diabetes, that family may have relied on a food bank, on SNAP, on resources that will likely be impacted. And so just to shift a little bit to our audience and to really tag on to what Ms. Liz was saying, it's really about how are we ready. I am so grateful that I have had the opportunity to serve for 20 years as the director of an outpatient drug treatment prevention service center who pursued grants. And so that really helped me, Miss Angela, to say, when I get this opportunity, I'm going to do this and tailor our policies to the needs of nonprofits, because I've been there. I've been the one on the grant recipient end and writing grants. And so what I always keep in mind is I have to be ready. Nonprofits, as Mr. Darius has said, we have to be ready. You can't get at ease in Zion. So even though you've had this pattern of funding for decades that you've relied on, you have to be ready for the shift. And so when I say ready, I'm thinking of resilience. So I want people to remember their purpose and their mission and their focus. And then I just want you to briefly think back to what the people who served in those agencies or in similar agencies. On my desk, I literally keep this note that says 1900. That's the year my grandmother was born. And I always think of what did she have to go through? What did she sacrifice so that I could be in the position of having matriculated, home ownership, car, house, clothes? When I think of what our ancestors or what the people who birthed you into your purpose, what did they go through? This is not the first storm. So I don't want people to get dismayed. This is not the first storm. We are resilient in what we determine that we will do. And we need to sometimes remember, yes, it is a storm, but this is not the storm. First storm, and it won't unfortunately be the last storm. But I also think about expanding your skill set. Now we need to really have an expansion of what these executive orders mean, what this means, and we're going to have to expand ourselves to really have a working knowledge of funding streams, of alternative funding streams. And it's really going to give the individuals on the call, and certainly our grantees that we train and support, how do you expand that skill set, and how do you expand your relationships so that you now are talking with individuals that you have never talked with before, because now you need the resources. But when we look at who we go to, we have to remember the audience. So when I talk with legislators, I tend to tell return on investment stories because they are the fiduciary agents of the state. I want to be culturally and linguistically appropriate, no different than I would make sure that language or materials were in the appropriate language for a participant. I am also making sure that I'm speaking to the audience in the language and cultural lens that they understand. So I'm not saying this is just a great program. I'm saying for every dollar you give me, I'm giving you $14.76 back return on investment. The work that I do is reducing and avoiding type 2 diabetes, which in the first year in Ohio costs roughly $17,000. I'm saving the state. I'm improving health status. I'm saving the state, and I'm helping people live longer to be taxpayers to get back to the general revenue of the state. So knowing that audience, and then being determined, understanding the worth of your program, and that your work at the end of the day is always making a difference. So yes, this is a challenging season, but I'm going to say to you, you were born for this. And you are the one that is in the position at this time and this season. Is it going to make you stretch? Absolutely. Is it going to make you discouraged? Sure. We're going to give time for those things, but it's also going to make you reach out and create relationships where you have not had relationships. It's going to make you build a skill set that's going to allow your organization to withstand this storm as well as future storms.
Come on, Miss Angela.
I mean, I feel like I don't even know where to go after that. I feel so inspired. And, you said in your introduction, Angela, that you were hoping to provide some inspiration and motivation. And you certainly did that along with your colleagues. And I just want to touch on a few things. just that you all just set the tone so beautifully. So, first of all, Angela, I love that you were like, this is a storm. And Darius, you said this is a unique moment. And I think it's such a great reminder that every time there's a change in legislation or leadership, Liz, you brought up the pandemic, like things do happen. This is a unique one, but the pandemic was also quite unique. And so there's this term of resilience, and I think that can mean a lot of different things that you all spoke to. So first, for our viewers, like, yes, it's a unique time. Yes, that it can feel like a storm. And then I think one thing that's really coming through in all of your comments is how much your agencies, your organizations are really seeing yourselves as partners to nonprofits. And I emphasize that a lot in our trainings. Just, funders are not ATM machines. In goes proposal, out comes money. And I think that's particularly important to remember around building relationship when it comes to this moment and funding. And we're going to circle back to relationship because there's a question in the chat about it. And then the third thing that's really coming up, and Liz, you brought this forward, was about collective wisdom and connection. And, Miss Angie, you touched on this too, just about it just had me think about expanding our skill sets and our working knowledge, and also sharing that with other organizations that are doing similar things, or other organizations that are in your community. So not, yes, funders are, we apply for grants and we get that money back and all of that. And we love that. And we need that for general operating and capacity. But funders also have all these other abilities. They do all these other things. So it's not, so thinking more broadly about, beyond just the grant funding, leveraging the grant or leveraging the relationship collectively is kind of something that's coming up for me as you guys were talking. So first of all, I just want to just thank you all for all of those nuggets. I will definitely be going back to listen to it for inspiration. I want to pivot from, the larger idea to some more specific, concrete things around submitting proposals and some of the questions that are coming up in the chat. And the first location we're going to go is around building relationships, because I think that it's always something that we hear when it comes to, grant funding and nonprofit seekers is build a relationship, build a relationship. So there's a couple of questions that are all under this category. So Liz, I'm going to start with you on this one. So the first one is about, well, there's a question about, as a smaller organization, how, with limited resource, how do you do that? Smaller, or I would even include grassroots in that. And then the other one, this one's from Larissa, and I think this is an interesting way to think about it too, which is about how to use your reports and communications to deepen your relationship with funders. So let's start with you just around this topic of building relationships from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think for us, relationships are a huge part of our grant making. Like I said, we have a smaller number of grants that we award each year. So for us, it's really about the organization, and it's about connecting and really seeing where there's either an alignment of values, and recognizing that as a funder, our aim is to support work that we can't do on our own. So I'll just point to two different organizations that we have relationships with. One is the Hawaii International Film Festival, where we support a program that underwrites support to bring immigrant filmmakers and their work to the festival to present. And really thinking about, what it means for us to highlight those stories, to share those stories, to share that work, because we're not film festival programmers. I'm not a film scholar. We don't have a team that can do that. But we know that the Hawaii International Film Festival is the right partner to do that work. I want another organization that I just want to highlight that's in our network is the Asia Art Archive in America here in Brooklyn. They're doing a lot of work really to build and collectivize libraries, to make libraries accessible with history of contemporary Asian artists in the United States and around the world, and to create exhibition space and discussion space for young and emerging artists. And again, that's work that we ourselves can't do, but that as a funder, we're really excited and happy to do. To go to the point of the question about where organizations are asking, how do I connect with a funder, even if I'm a small organization? For us, I think especially with just recently opening our grants to an open call for applications, we really made ourselves accessible to organizations as much as possible. So we had our email available, an open email, grants@vilcek.org on our website, where if an organization felt they had an alignment that they could reach out, and then I was responding to questions. If there were organizations that had a clear alignment, looking to jump on a call with an organization and just say, let's have a 15-minute, this is what we're funding. Tell me a bit about what you're doing. Tell me a bit about what you need funding for right now. And, if it was something that wasn't directly in our wheelhouse, where are there other funders that we may be able to connect people to, or other resources we may be able to connect people to? And just also recognizing, just building that relationship is so important, because in nonprofits and in philanthropy, so many of us are wearing so many different hats at any given time. And any time that we can get support or get training for any one of those roles that we may be inhabiting is an enormous help. So I'd really say just being open, reaching out, being clear about why you're reaching out. I think just one paragraph saying, hi, I'm so-and-so from the XYZ organization, and we do ABC. I want to know if we could have a chat, or what your grant making looks like. That gives me enough information that I can see if we can set up a call that I can answer if you have a specific question. And I think too, there was a really core point that Angela mentioned in her remarks, this idea of return on investment. And I think we sometimes think about this in whether it's sharing information to boards or to administrators or to leadership. But it's something that I also want to, in a way, I know so many organizations are saying, how do we strengthen our applications? And really say, tell me why an investment in you is going to, what rewards you are going to reap, what is going to benefit your community, what investing or building a partnership will do in terms of expanding your work, expanding the impact that we have, expanding the relationships and the connectivity that we all have. And not thinking about it as transactional, but thinking about it as a larger ecosystem, and how when we work together, we can really be supportive of our shared goals and values.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I want to just say before I go on to Angela for her remarks, Liz, for our viewers out there, Liz just broke down a whole script for how do you reach out to funders. So go back, and she just said in one paragraph, this is what you say, then this is what you do. So, one of the takeaways is do the prep work. Prep for that outreach. In this case of Vilcek Foundation, if you're a good fit, a 15-minute call, she said, 15-minute call of where you're going to say who you are, what you do, what's the connection point between that funder and what you do. You will get that from their websites.
And I'll do my homework too. I'll look up your organization. If you share a link to your website, I'm going to look you up, see what you're doing, see what your connections are, see, where there's a fit or an alignment. But just happy to share that and think about how we can all support one another in these times, and in all times, regardless of what comes.
Yeah. And I love what you shared about we're creating an ecosystem together. So thank you for that. Let's see. Let's go on to Miss Angie. Same question.
What I want to focus on for the small nonprofits, medium size, put your board to work. If your board is filled with your friends, redo your board. Your board membership should reflect the needs of the participants or the community members you are serving. So you need visibility, so you should have a marketing person on your board. You need financial oversight, so you should have someone, CPA or someone who works in banking. You need your specific services. So if you are working with youth on violence prevention, you should have a psychologist, you should have a teacher. So your board membership should reflect the needs of the population communities that you are serving. And then you put your board members to work, because your board members have connections. And so the underutilization of board members is one of the top things that we identified as an area for growth for our grantees that we fund. Restructuring, and go to your Chamber of Commerce. They have lists of people who just want to serve. They just want to make a difference. So go to your local Chamber of Commerce and look for the people that are looking to make a difference in the community. But put your board to work to increase your visibility, to outreach. And then look at your own circle. What are your social circles? If your social circle isn't supporting your organization, that's a message to you. How do you get buy-in? Sometimes the funder wants to know who else has invested in you. So we always encourage our grantees, come in for your conference funding 6 months ahead of time. So you can say, the Commission on Minority Health is supporting our health conference for the Latino youth because they did. Would you be able to also match what they did? And now we've got 2. And now I'm going to say, could you help us because they helped me? And you use that to garner even more support. Also, think about asking for items and not funding. So very often, your MCOs, your managed care organizations, your Medicaid organizations, those who provide the health plans, those managed care organizations, ask them to buy the lunch for your event. Ask them to get the swag for your event. If you've seen them and they had a beautiful folder, ask them, could you just supply the folder? Ask community organizations that are around you. When I ran a drug treatment agency, I went to the gas station, I went to the grocery store, I went everywhere saying, hey, we have youth activities. Would you be interested in being honored to provide snacks? So it's how do I use every single relationship that I have, but put your board to work.
Thank you. And Darius, what are your thoughts on this relationship building?
Most definitely. When I first started here back in 2017, I wasn't in this particular role, but I was working with our donors more one-on-one. And so one of the major funding sources of community foundations are donor advised funds. We house hundreds of those. And the thing I love about our donors, especially getting to know them through my former role, and then when the pandemic hit, I realized just how active and engaged they are within their communities. And I'm going to pause there for a second. There was this video over the weekend from Beyonce's last concert date in Vegas, where she's behind the scenes and she took pictures with some kids. And she knelt down and said, one of my knees are bad, but I'm going to kneel down so I can take pictures with you. And when she finally got down, she let out a sigh. And that just showed the human nature of her, because, everybody sees her as this great performer and she's almost non-human. And a lot of people see donors in that same way, but they are humans just like you and I are. And so when the pandemic hit, rich people were impacted as well. There was a health crisis that impacted the entire world, no matter what your wealth was. And so the beautiful thing that came out of that is that our community foundation partnered with United Way, and we had 2 other funding organizations, the Knight Foundation and Peyton Anderson, and we created this COVID-19 Response and Recovery Fund. And under that fund, we built up a lot of money and was able to grant that money back out to these organizations, including small businesses. But a lot of that came from us creating a steering committee of people that were reflective of the community, the different professions in our community, the different sectors of our community, and just hearing and having these weekly calls by sector. We did arts and culture, we did education, we did children, youth, and services. And we had calls every single day to hear what the needs were. But the most beautiful thing about that was that our donors were coming to us and asking, what can we do? You know, people have this idea that donor advised funds are just where rich people park their money. But I can guarantee you that here at our foundation and our community foundation across the country, these donors are very active in their funds and they're wanting to know what's going on. And sometimes they come to us to let us know what's going on so that we can have knowledge of it, so we can make our funding more strategic as well. But also, point two of that, we figured out a way not to waste resources when we build relationships and know what each other are doing. So on those weekly calls that we had, there were people saying, hey, I have this, or I need this and I need that. And they were able to build that connection and relationship right there, so that they can have what they need to serve the people that they're serving. And so at the end of the day, regardless of what you may think, we're all just human beings. We have a role that we're playing, a job that we're doing, and we're not unapproachable. And so what that taught me was to figure out a way to provide access for everybody. And so I'm still learning that day to day. But one of the things I did do a couple of years ago was to put in my email signature, schedule a time to talk with me. And my calendar is open, and anybody can click that link and find a time that works for them. And we'll do a 15-minute call or Zoom or what have you, so that I can learn about your organization. And other things that I'm out in the community. I was out in the community before I got this role, because I love people. You know, I love helping people. And so I'm knowledgeable by what people share with me, but also by what I see and what I'm engaged in. So I always welcome the opportunity for people to pick up the phone, stop by the office, email me, what have you, because I want to know what's going on so that we can make sure that we're deploying our funds in the most appropriate way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Gosh, the time is like flying by. I want to get to this question about, just sort of the brass tacks of proposals. One of the questions that always comes up is around, what can we do as grant seekers to make our proposals stand out? What are some helpful tips that you could give around, applying for funding? And you all have brought up one very important one, which is your ROI, or describing what we would call our program outcomes, the measurable benefits for the community. And so, Ms. Angie, I'd like to start with you just from this perspective of the question around what can we do, what can grant seekers do around preparing their proposals and having them stand out?
Certainly. Excellent question. Evaluation, data, and return on investment. So many people can say 87% of our youth graduated from high school that we work with, but we don't take the next step to look at what is the cost of those who don't graduate. And if you don't graduate, then how many of those youth go on to Department of Youth Services? And then how much does Department of Youth Services cost for a year for a young person to be incarcerated? So we often don't connect our outcomes to what we are helping the system to avoid. So by engaging youth in nonviolent drug prevention activities, you are also unaddressed. It is a high likelihood that that population will go right into suspension, expulsion, Department of Youth Services. But we don't calculate for every youth that does not go in there, what is the return on investment? because your program is having an impact. Evaluate your program. And I am not speaking of a satisfaction survey. And while you want to have input and focus groups from your participants, we require it. But you also want to be able to measure. If I am working with a youth, am I measuring did their attendance go up? Am I measuring did they get in a fight? Am I measuring their ability to avoid drug-using peers? What am I measuring that can then connect with a system improvement and then be able to correlate that? It's just, you got to know your worth. Determine the worth of your program. Demonstrate that when someone comes in, you're doing a baseline assessment of whatever you're working on. And then every 90 days, I am showing that measure again. So if you are coming in for a diabetes prevention grant, trust me, you are doing a baseline. You're measuring that A1C every 90 days. You're measuring the BMI every 90 days. You are measuring the increase of physical activity, because we don't mean a referral to the Y. You're going to do the exercise in the program. We know that you cannot think your way to weight reduction. I've learned it. I don't want to how many spas and gyms I've joined that just didn't work out. But we want to make sure evaluation, using your data to prove a return on investment.
Thank you. Liz?
Yeah, I think, in terms of how an organization can make a strong application, I know it's something that we've thought about ourselves too, and how are we constructing our application and what language are we using to clarify what we're looking from an organization. So to Angela's point, we specifically ask, what are your quantifiable outcomes? What are your qualifiable outcomes of your work? What impact are you having that may not be measurable, but might be impacting visibility or accessibility in a community? And what does success look like for your organization, either with an operations grant or a project grant? And that's really for us as a funder to understand, we want to make the language accessible. I think as a funder, what we want to do is we want to be able to make connections, make this work accessible, make funding accessible to organizations that have a clear program in place and are designing their work in a way that is going to accomplish their mission. And getting away from overly academic language. We recognize that it's very easy to say, what is your theory of change? But what makes your organization you? What are you doing to accomplish your mission? How does your work achieve your goals? How are you putting your values into action? Which really I think comes back to so much of, what the heart is in both the nonprofit sector and in the philanthropic sector, and what is bringing us to this work, and how can we make sure that we're connecting and understanding what organizations are doing. I think too, for organizations, highlight what makes you unique, highlight what you're doing that is special or sets you apart. It's applications are limited, so you may just have a few paragraphs, some uploaded documents to share. I think also reaching out, just being connected, making that initial email or that initial call, to put yourself on an organization's radar is so valuable just for building connectivity, for building visibility, but really just using an application to highlight what makes your organization unique. What are you doing that's putting your values into action in a meaningful way that has a positive impact or that has an impact that you can qualify or quantify?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. What does success look like? That's a takeaway from me. Go ahead, Darius.
I certainly echo everything that Liz and Angela both said, and I'm gonna go and not go the data route because they've educated you there. I'm gonna say a strong application for me is one that is submitted and has met the criteria.
Mm.
In terms of, don't get your application kicked out before it's even read because you did not read the guidelines of the organization or the program that you're applying to. It happens far too often, I guarantee you. And it's only one of me, and I'm reading hundreds of applications, and I'm looking for ways to bring that pile down a little bit. So if it's an organization that, let's say we're funding arts and culture, and you're trying to do economic development, or something just out of the way of arts and culture, then yours is gonna go in the no pile for now. And that's the worst part of my job, is having to send out declines. That's the part that I
Mm-hmm.
hate the most. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. But I graduated college undergrad in 2016, and one of my ethics or theory professors um, always mentioned that we're moving towards an anti-intellectual world. I didn't really understand what that meant back then, but I'm learning now that there are uh, people that just aren't reading as often. And in this world of philanthropy and applying for funding, it helps you to read the guidelines that are put before you, and make sure that you're not trying to um, fit your square peg in a round hole.
Mm.
You want to make sure that what you're applying for, you can actually get. Because if not, you basically just wasted your time applying for something that you're not eligible for, when you could have been putting that time towards a program that you were eligible for. So a strong application for me is one that actually meets the criteria that were set before them.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Angela, if I could just jump in, let me say, having run a outpatient drug treatment agency and prevention services agency, which was severely understaffed, let me say to our nonprofits on the call, I know that you are working from can't see to can't see.
Mhm.
I know that you some days feel like a firefighter, that you got to put out the most important
Mhm.
fire. I am in no way minimizing that. Some of you have not taken a paycheck in order to pay your staff. I've been there and done that. And I'm going to say, put your board to work. Get yourself a mentor. Have someone other than you read the application before you put it in. I built an application that will not even close if all the documents are not uploaded, because I did not want to see
Mm.
continual declines because documents weren't uploaded. But make your board work. Have somebody other than you, because more often than not, you are trying to do the work of the agency. You are dribbling that ball, and now you got to somehow break away and write a grant. And I'm not assuming you got a grant writer. I know more than likely you are the grant writer,
Mhm.
and you are the landlord, and you are the keeper. And this is where mentorship is so important. Get someone who will mentor you, who will read over your grant, that you trust and has a love for the work you do, to say, there's a better way to write that. Here's what you didn't look at. You forgot to sign and date the document. Because I know what nonprofit world is like. Nonprofit is largely underfunded, understaffed, and you are working to keep the staff you have, because there's always this turnover that you are dealing with. So it does take a village to do anything.
Mhm.
And so that collaboration is so important. When I ran an agency, trust me, we would get together and decide who was going to go after the grant, which agency was best positioned, and then we would all help them to write the grant, because we were all going to benefit from it, because that's the level of collaboration that we did. And it kept us from competing and fighting each other. Rather, it put us in a position of support. Put your board to work.
And
Thank
one
you.
more
Yeah.
thing.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And,
If,
and
if you submit a proposal to us, and you get past that first round of cuts, you can expect that you're going to get a phone call from me, because I recognize, and our foundation recognizes, that you can't put everything into an application.
Mhm.
that's right.
And
Yeah.
there are some things that you want to say and just can't say, and it's going to get cut off, and you just can't do it. But one of the things that we do before our grants committee meet to review the application and decide on funding is that I schedule a call with each of the applicants, about 15, 20 minutes, just so I can have a better understanding of their proposal and the work that they're doing.
Mm.
So that if there's any discussion regarding their proposal within our grants committee meeting, I'm able to step in and have that discussion and fill those gaps as much as I possibly can.
hmm
So if you are provided an opportunity to meet with the funder, take it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you sometimes you might have to just pick up the phone and call and say, hey, do you mind if I have a scheduled time with you to discuss my proposal? Everybody's not going to say yes. Everybody's not going to say no. And the
Mhm.
worst thing they
Yeah.
can say is no. So take the
Mhm.
opportunity as much as possible can.
And request
Yeah.
feedback, even if you didn't get funded.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for feedback, ask for written feedback so you can learn
Mhm.
in a better
Yeah.
application.
Yeah.
I
Go ahead,
do want
Liz.
to just speak a bit to what Darius said. One, wanting to make sure that organizations who are reaching out find the right funders. It's and that can be hard because there are so many. But I know something that we're doing, and that you know hearing Angela and Darius talk about their organizations and their work. I think as funders, it's important that we define what our yes is, define what is going to be successful, be clear about what we will fund. And then for organizations, looking for the funders who may be a fit, because we know, and I know from being on the other side of grant making, that's one part of so many people's jobs when you're in a nonprofit, and seeking funders that are aligned with your work, and making outreach, making that direct connection. And because that just gives a human connection to this. It's so much of what we're doing. And if we're not the right funder, we'll tell you. But if there's somebody that we can connect you with, we're happy to connect you, or to provide some other resource, because we all have to be able to support one another in this. And if we can't, we'll do our best just to see what we can, just to be supportive and to be good citizens in this workspace.
Yeah. Well, we are at the top of the hour and a little bit some. So I want to thank you all so much. This is definitely one that I know I will be going back to watch again. I hope all of you will be going back to watch again. There were so many, so much encouragement and insight, and also really practical things, practical to-dos and tips, scripts, and how to word it, and things like that are also in this. So I hope that this conversation has been so great for and helpful to our viewers out there. I want to thank all of our panelists, Angela, Darius, Liz. Thank you for your time and wisdom and insight, and just sharing your perspective and about your agencies, and really also, I think, buoying this our viewers here today. I want to again thank our sponsors, Grant Station, the Grantsmanship Center, and Foundant, for making these conversations possible. I want to thank you all the participants, for sending in your questions. I know we didn't get to all of them, but I do hope that what was shared, there was a lot of questions that were getting answered. So I hope that each of you has a really meaningful takeaway. You will get a follow-up email with the recording, so you can watch it again, and for anything that you missed. And please do save the date. October 15th will be our next Meet the Grantmakers panel, and we hope that you will join us then. So again, on behalf of the Grantsmanship Center, all of our panelists, and our sponsors, we thank you again for joining this conversation and wish you well. Thank you.